What is up, guys? Welcome to the All In Poker Podcast with Ryan the Rock and Bad Beat Bryce. How you doing today, Ryan?
I am doing so good. How are you, Bryce?
I'm doing pretty good. No complaints. Still fired up from the recent bink I had, so kind of still running off those hype fumes.
What did you bank?
A $22 tournament on ACR. I got second out of like 8,400 entries. I spun $22 into 19K. So that felt pretty good. Definitely on the smaller side of buy-ins I normally play, but I mean, those smaller buy-in fields are just so incredibly soft. Obviously, there's an element of luck running that deep in that large of field, but yeah, it felt good. The guy that I lost to was bad. He was open reason to over 3 big blinds off a 28-30 big blind stack heads up. Like, dude, I need to show you the replay of our heads up battle. And he was getting in so bad. He called off with like king six off for like 20 bigs. Yeah. I got it in with like ace 10.
You just had a massive edge.
So many spots. Yeah.
That's so sick.
He had like a 4.5, 5-1 chip lead when we started, and I brought it back to even, then I lost. But yeah, he was just bad. It only cost me 6K, but like it was it was the title I wanted at that point.
Oh, 100%. You make it that deep is what you want to do. But I mean, at least it's clear that there was an edge and that you were performing well and you were happy with how you played.
Yeah, I mean, all the other players at the final table, I wouldn't say were bad, but like I identified him like final 300 whale, like tagged him as a whale. Like so it was tilting to see him just like run like God and win. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So this week on the All In Poker Podcast, we are featuring one of my personal favorite poker content creators, a Michigan native with an impressive resume of tournament cashes. David Kaye continues to build a poker community around his Twitch streams and YouTube highlight videos, amassing 10,000 subs and followers between the two channels. With his unique content formatting and engaging presence on stream, expect to hear his name more and more in the future of the poker content world. Without further ado, let's welcome David Kaye to the podcast.
Hey, Ryan and Bryce, thanks for having me on. Super excited. I'm going to steal that and save that intro, Ryan, and use it for all my own content. Great hype intro. Very well executed.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I thank you for that. That has happened to us once before with the next gen poker boys, and I got to tell you, in terms of intros, that they put it onto like this crazy rap beat for this intro with a bunch of B-roll shots of TCH. So that's gonna be a tough one to live up to.
Yeah, well done. And Bryce, congrats on the big score. He said 19K.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, it's huge. Chat about probably the biggest high variance spot in your poker career. Hitting a bad beat jackpot in poker is one of the rarest things to occur. For anyone watching this that isn't familiar, some poker rooms have a bad beat jackpot, where if a minimum qualifying hand, often quad jacks or better, is beat by an opponent's hand, the loser, winner, and the entire table are paid out a proportion of the prize pool, which can get huge in places because it's hard to hit, with the loser getting paid out the largest share. In 2017, you were coming off a year in which you hit a big tournament score for 16K and it built up your first significant role of your poker career. How was the experience of winning a poker bad beat jackpot, and how did that change your poker career trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy. My friends have always joked that I'm just a super lucky person, like poker aside. And like as soon as I won that and told my friends, is like I can never live this down again. Like obviously, I just got confirmed as the biggest luck box out there. So basically, like the way the hand went down is like the craziest part. So I ended up getting about 16K for having the losing hand. And I was in Pittsburgh, just like traveling to play like a poker tour event. And basically within the first hour, we get to this board on the river where it's like king, 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 4. And it's like, so it's just 4 kings and a 4 out there. We check down and like my opponent jumps from his seat and just starts going nuts and like demanding to see my hand. At first, I think the guy's just crazy. I'm just like, does he want to show me that he's like catching a bluff or something? I don't know. So I flip my hand over. It's like queen 10. He has ace 9 and the whole table erupts. And I'm just like really confused because like in most rooms with the bad beat jackpot, both your cards have to play. Whereas right now, like I'm just playing queen high, he's playing ace high, and then we've got the 4 kings on the board. And like eventually someone explains it to me in this room, this is their first time running this promotion. And they had it anytime it's over 30K, it's quads beaten by quads and only one card has to play. and the total jackpot was like 32K. So because it was just over 30, I get the losing hand. This is like I said, an hour into this session, and like I have the losing side of it, and the most ridiculous ruling I've ever heard of, but like obviously in my favor. So I'm just
That's so absurd.
Yeah, so it was pretty crazy experience. And like as far as the change it had, I mean, it was pretty big. I think at the time, like I had a full-time job. I was just playing poker, mainly live cash, mixing in some live tournaments. But anytime you add that much to your bankroll, like I was kind of like cuspy between playing 1-2 and 2-5 at the time, mainly 2-5, but like that was kind of like a hurdle where it's like now I'm really comfortable, especially like having a full-time job. Where you guys, you know, like your bankroll experience or your bankroll management is like as far as how many binds you want, it's very different at recreational level versus like professional. So like at that point, I had like a really good roll for 2-5, which then like compounds and basically makes it where you can play in spots where you make more money. So it's not just like the 16K that's important, along with the incredibly ridiculous story, but it's also the fact that like it gives you opportunity to make more money in the future too.
Yeah, I mean, I think just building off of that, because it's a really good conversation to have in terms, because we get a lot of questions, you know, on Instagram and in the chat about bankroll management in general. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting because, you know, Bryce has been semi-professional and professional. You're obviously professional, mm-hmm. and it's interesting. Like from my perspective, what I think of when I think of a significant bankroll is like, you know, 15 to 20 buy-ins is enough to really get you going for a recreational player. Like for me, I play, you know, twice a week, usually every week if I could swing it. And you realistically only need like 10 to 15 buy-ins at whatever stake that you're playing. So, you know, at 1-2, that's 3K, which is really all you need to get started in this, which is a lot. And that's something that you have to set aside in order to do it. But what was a significant bankroll for you as a professional back then?
So I'm maybe a little stricter than some people. So for online 6-max cash games, I'll want 100 buy-ins for whatever game I'm playing effectively. Without nerding out over the tax situation, I basically factor in the tax situation. So like if I'm winning or losing only say like at the beginning of the year, like 80% of it, I basically factor in is like instead of buying in for 500, I'm really only buying in for 400. But basically effectively I want 100 buy-ins for online 6-max. A big part of that though too, like that might sound like a lot to people with like a live background, but in online cash games, even in like a market like Michigan, it's like your edges aren't huge, so your swings are going to be bigger. So like the bigger your win rate is, obviously, the less bankroll you probably need because you're not going to have as much variance. So for like live cash games, I use a 50 buy-in rule, and usually a lot of those games are like 200 big blind buy-ins. So like for example, right now I'll play like live 2-5 1K max, or I'll play 2-5 online with like a 500 max buy-in.
That's awesome. Not all the casinos out where I'm at have a 1K cap on their 2-5, which is a little annoying because I do like 200 big blind steep is just it's more fun. It is. I just think it's more fun.
It really is, and especially the live setting where it's like there's so many different player types and just like so many different things you can see. You can get really creative, super deep for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that deep play. And I think it's awesome, like how safe you are with your bankroll. A lot of pros who are very talented just are too aggressive and go broke just from pressing their luck too much and pressing the variance. And even if you're one of the best players in the world, like if you're hopping in, if you're an MTT pro, like you need just infinite roll.
Yeah, MTT is like a whole nother level. I have like so much respect for people that play turns exclusively. It's like the mindset it takes to like, you could have an ROI of like 40%. Like I've seen like, there's a lot of like statistical modeling plug in. It's like you have a 40% ROI and like lose over 1,000 tournaments, and it's just like crazy. And it's just like the amount of buy-ins you can get down. It's just like absurd.
Right. And it's like, you know, a cash rate of 15%. It's like, oh, you're doing great. You know,
it's really good that you fail 85% of the time. Great job. You know.
Yeah, it's a hard thing for people to embrace. I think the other thing is just like the pure overwhelming nature of like the number of charts and spots, and because the stack size varies and matters so much. Like there are just you just have to understand how things change, and you have to have a good strategy at a bunch of different stack depths. And if you don't, like you're just gonna have massive holes in your game. And like that's really where I'm at with because I'm only just starting to tinker my way back into it. I played a lot more at the beginning of the pandemic when we were all locked down and things, but now I kind of want to try playing a little bit of live tournaments, but certainly a difficult thing.
Yeah, especially too with like tournament variants. I don't think a lot of people realize, like in cash games, a lot of times you play like the same stake level or 2 stake levels. But like if you're playing a $33 tournament versus you play like say from 33 to 215, it's like that 215 is way more significant. So it's like not only are tournaments crazy, But then the variance of, hey, you want to run good in the right ones, which it just, it adds to it too. It makes it. I'm sure Bryce can attest.
Yeah, I went from playing the Venom to playing the $22 Sunday. I was like, oh, this is so annoying. Like the most I'm gonna make is like $200, and like I started running deep, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Like I actually have a shot at some decent money.
Yeah,
that was awesome. So I mean, speaking of online poker, you live in one of, if not the best state in the country for online poker in Michigan. So your question is, what can states that are starting to look at legalizing online poker take from the regulatory environment in Michigan? Both good and bad.
Yeah, so I think the way things stand right now, for those of you not familiar with like the U.S. regulated market, so there's sites that offer like offshore, so like they're in a different country, and then people in the U.S. can play on them. But if you want like state regulated, like they get sanctioned by the state, I think there's about 3 or 4 states that have like operations right now. So you have Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Now, for the most part, each state within its own has its own separate player pool. So there's one site that has WSOP where it's New Jersey and Nevada together. But for example, right now, like we have PokerStars and BetMGM in Michigan. So does Pennsylvania, but we're actually 2 separate player pools still. And I think, honestly, there's a couple of takeaways. I think for any state that wants to come in, like I'm surprised by how much action there is in Michigan alone for only one state. Like the fact that we can sustain like 2-5 and 1-2 cash games online, I think is pretty remarkable. Yeah. And then like the tournament guarantees, there's been 100K guarantee events that hit the guarantee, if not smash it, which for only one state's crazy. But I think like the long-term thing is like realistically to really make this kind of reach its full potential, like they need to make one player pool. Like it just, at the end of the day, like that's where the money's going to be. But I think for the time being, like any state that wants to come in, I have to imagine they're generating a lot of revenue. Now, obviously like sports betting, casino games are going to bring in more money, but poker's got to be bringing in some. And if only one state of Michigan can have these huge prize pools, there's a lot of states out there that would be very similar to, I'd have to imagine.
I would tend to agree. It's hard. There are some states that have other complicating factors. Like I live in Connecticut, for instance, and we have long, it's long just been the situation that the local tribes have control over a lot of the gambling. And with the advent of a lot of online gambling forms and really online sports betting, there's been a lot of leeway given there, but not nearly enough for something as significant as online poker to be passed. So it's going to be a while for places like here, but there's a lot of states that it just would take a nice little, someone needs to give them a little push and you could be pushed off the edge.
Yeah. And I think even within Michigan, we could kind of see that too, because like the sports betting, the casino games launched before poker did. And it comes down to dollars, right? Like those are a higher priority because they bring in more money. So it's like maybe these other states that are just starting to get sports betting, hopefully they're going to be like Michigan, where it's like eventually they get it. And then, it's, again, just the more states that are in, the better, I think, overall.
All right. Yeah. So recently I had a really interesting debate with some followers on Instagram about the YouTube vlogger space. And the issue that I had with the content, that was so much of it was just built around a pre-solved formula. You have a 5-minute intro with B-roll, 10 minutes of rapid fire hand histories with no analysis, 2-minute outro and merge plug. You're one of my favorite content creators to watch, Ryan and I, because the way you talk about strategy and how you're able to have a clear thought process in a time-constrained online setting. What do you see as the future of poker content creation, and where do you yourself fit in it?
Yeah, so first of all, I really appreciate the kind words, really high praise. I'm glad you enjoyed the content form. Yeah, I would say my content is different from what you'll see a lot of the YouTube vlogger space. Like if we just focus on like just the American vloggers, I think it simply just starts with the fact that my play is online and theirs is live. I don't really think there's much online YouTube content. So it starts as simple as that. And then, so I kind of, when I was putting my channels together, a lot of it was like the pros and cons side of like, okay, I'm playing online versus a lot of these people are live. So what's the pros of that? What's the cons? I think like if just kind of going through them is the easiest thing. I think the pros is it's going to be a lot quicker for me to edit videos. So I know a lot of people have talked about like with live bloggers, it takes them like 15, 20 hours to edit videos.
Right.
And for me, it's like I can put everything together in about 2 hours as well as answer chat comments. So it's like so an advantage I have right there is like I can just post more videos in less time. So like that's a huge advantage there. Also, I really like the aspect of like the hand analysis that I'm doing is live in time. So like a live vlogger is like, okay, they've had time to think about the hand and then they have to talk about it. And then it's like, okay, in these spots. And whereas in like live in game, I'm going to say some really stupid things on my vlog that like when I'm editing the video, I'm like, chat's going to grill me today. I just know it. I know I'm wrong. They're going to be right. But it's just, it's part of that. But I really like that aspect of like, you can see what I'm thinking in game. And then like, I think it's a good message to people too playing smaller stakes is like, even if I'm playing higher stakes and I still make plenty of mistakes every day. Like, I'm huge mistakes in pots that cost me over $1,000 or whatever. But I think it's kind of like a nice piece to show that, hey, like, if you make mistakes, it's okay. Other people do too. It's just like basically handling the best you can. I think as far as like the cons for it is going to be that just like I think live poker is bigger in the US simply because of the regulation settings. So I think there's going to be way more people that want to watch live vlogs than online. Simply. Also, the live vloggers, many of them are really good at being creative and having good B-roll stuff. Whereas like online, I'm literally just like, here's a 5-second intro. I'm going to do all hand analysis. And then here's the outro of how I did the results. Because
here's
like,
one of my 5 Michigan Spartan sweatshirts.
Yes, exactly. I rock Michigan State, San Francisco 49ers, and like maybe a Nike sweatshirt. So it's like, I can't really do like B-roll of my room around me. Like, I don't think that would really be too so I basically just like from that mindset, just realized like if I'm going to do online content, it needs to be super analytical and strategy based. So I just basically use that. And then, yes, I mean, that's like the biggest pros and cons. I think that with the live vloggers too, it's like more and more people are picking up because there's a lot of them out there. So like you find one live vlogger, you find a new one, and then another one. Whereas like online, there's some people that do like highlight videos, and I've seen some other cash game people out there, but they're international, they're not US. So it's just like, it is weird because I try to explain to people, it's like my YouTube channel is like in a niche genre of poker.
Yeah, you kind of cornered a little market.
But then even more niche that it's online poker. So it's just like very different within an already small market.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like really my contention in the argument that I was having people on Instagram, and like I got what a lot of people said, because a lot of the responses that people had were like, oh, like, they're for entertainment purposes, like why are you trying to get free education out of a vlog? Like it's just there to entertain you. And like I get that. Like I see that a lot of these vloggers, it's like it's meant for you to just like, here's rapid fire what happened in my session. Here are the 5-10 most interesting hands at max, to just try to get that in there. But I also think that like it would just be so nice to have somebody from that space slow down and actually look at one of those spots in depth. Like even if they just do it once a video, just slow down and like look at a spot in real depth. Because I think I find that I struggle to watch a lot of the vloggers now because they've just gotten to this pre-fed formula program that works great and they get 30,000 views and they make their money and that's fabulous. And it's not like the content's bad. Like I'm not that angry about it. I just think that they could be doing it would probably make it easier from an editing standpoint too,
It's hard. Yeah, it's definitely hard. Like from their perspective, I get why they don't, because I kind of tried to. So like I tried doing some hand reviews where I would have a guest on, and like I had some people on that are playing incredibly high stakes. Like they're playing 5K NL online, which is like 25.50 with a 5K buy-in, and they're winning in these games. So they're super good. Yeah. And like I did a few hand reviews of this guy, and it's like 20-minute videos going over one hand. And before I post this video, I'm like, man, this is my favorite content I've ever had. I'm so glad I had this guy. And then like I upload the video, it does terrible on views. It gets like the lowest watch percentage, and people in the comments are losing their mind. Like multiple people are like, we don't watch your videos to learn strategy. We're here for entertainment. So I'm just like, bang on me, right? Like this guy's just going off in the comments. But I think honestly to the masses and with content, I get why, it's just like the quick hitter. And like you said, like they have a formula that works. And even for me, it's like, I've found my own formula that works, right? Like if you watch, like a lot of my videos are the same concept. It's like, I just do the quick intro. Like I said, I do a bunch of hand analysis for 10 minutes and do an outro. And it's just like, it's different from the live vlogs, but it's the same concept of like, I've kind of found my formula and that's what you stick with. And that seems to be what people like. So it's hard to kind of try to get new avenues, even if like to me and you, like when I see someone with the deep hand analysis, I'm like, yes, this is what I'm here for. But then I realize not everyone's as much as a nerd as I am and like wants more of the other stuff. So
Ryan definitely likes to nerd out. I do too on occasion, but some of these content creators I think definitely are just trying to appeal to the masses. And while there are the few percenters of us who just love to nerd out, they're gonna make more money, they're gonna get more views, and they're probably gonna get overall better feedback on their videos from the formula that they currently have. But
and at the end of the day, they're not wrong. Right, the viewers aren't wrong. Like I pay to watch Bart to listen to the wonderful teachings of Bart Hansen. Yeah, I pay money for that. I pay money to watch him watch live streams and talk about what people are doing and how to make decisions better. So like at the end of the day, I understand that, and I am a dues paying member of. We all are. I guess David not as much. Upswing pays him for that, but. For the rest of us, we've all got our own little coaching site.
Yeah, I think, and that's part of the thing too. I think with the deep hand analysis, like it kind of still has its own market, but it's a lot more of the coaching, right? So like Bart Hansen said, a lot of people I know watch his live stuff. There's lots of training sites out there. Like you said, I'm affiliated with Upswing. I've been using them for a long time, and there's a lot of other good sites out there too. But I think that they kind of take some of the market that maybe like the in-depth analysis could work for live vloggers because there's already training sites. Whereas like, I do think realistically, most people watch for entertainment. I think that's probably the case, but it's nice to get entertainment and like analysis at the same time. So it's like a hard line to walk, but if you have to be closer to one than the other, you're going to do better towards the entertainment side, I'd have to guess.
Also, how did you end up partnering with Upswing? Was it just a thing of you reached out to them after a while of creating content, was like, hey, I've been using your stuff for a while, I'd love to partner? Or did Doug Polk call you on the phone?
Yeah, I'd love to say I had like a call from Doug. No, I just like basically just emailed support.
It's time.
Yeah, so I started getting people to reach out to like basically advertise on my channel. And I think a huge thing for me is I only want to advertise products I use or I believe in. So
love that.
Yeah, so kind of disgustingly, I've turned away a lot of stuff that like maybe could have made me some good money. But like in the long term, like if I'm pitching something, like I just want to say like, hey, I truly believe in this product no matter what it is. And so like once I started getting those offers, but they weren't from, and it didn't have to be necessarily something that I had used before, but like I would listen to them and I'm just like, I think your product's good, but if I'm not going to use it, I don't want to advertise it. So I think at that point I was like, well, what products do I use? I'm like, well, I use Upswing. I've been a member of the lab since like COVID hit when I was trying to transition from mainly live to online. I was like, I think it's a great product. It really helped me a ton. So I was like, let me just reach out and see if they're interested in like an affiliate type deal. And they were, we set it up probably within 2 weeks and just have it set to go.
Okay, so I watched an interview that you had with playmichigan.com.
Mm-hmm.
You said that the most difficult part of poker content creation is differentiating yourself and making content that people want to watch. What is it about your channel that you think really holds people's attention? What do you think it is about your channel that really holds people's attention?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it's just like the quick hitter of the hands. So like another kind of a pro that we're trying to go back to like the live and online vlogger is when I play a 5-hour session, I'm going to see way more hands than a live player is. So I'm going to have way more hands to select basically. So my hands are going to be bigger pots, you know, like more interesting spots. So I can take like 2,000 hands to look at, whereas they might get 150. So I think that's a huge thing of like what a lot of people like is that a lot of my hands are gonna be pretty big pots, are like really interesting spots. And then just like the quick hitter format of like, like I said, it really is just like super short intro, hand analysis for 10 minutes and then quick outro. So it's just like, it's quick hitter. So if you really want like hand analysis and have it be like within like a reasonable time frame, I think that's kind of the big drawing thing in my channel. Also the fact that I post 5 videos a week. So going back to the thing where like live vloggers, I don't think people realize like if they post 1 video a week, like that's 15, 20 hours of video editing. If they post 2, they're doing a full-time job just video editing. Whereas like I can post 5 videos in a week with 10 hours worth of editing. So I think a lot of people like the consistency and how much I'm posting. Now, like I said, I can't be like, oh, I'm working harder than these live vloggers, because that's not the case. Like, honestly, they're putting in more video editing time. It's just that like I can get videos out more efficiently just because of the format. But I think a lot of people like that they, you know, I post the same time every day. And it's like they know they wake up at 11 Monday through Friday, new videos up, right? New video up, new video up, new video up. So I think that's like a huge draw of mine, and kind of like the grinder feel. Like I don't have like lots of like splash around it, but it's like people can kind of relate that are on the grind trying to grow up in stakes and just like the day-to-day grind of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think speaking of the day-to-day grind, I'd like to get to back to what we were talking about in the intro, which was about my recent downswing. And so like as a recreational, you know, a downswing for me is like, you know, even like 7 or 8 buy-ins would be considered a pretty significant downswing for me. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. You know, I was just starting to shot take at 2.5. You were talking about being at that point where you're starting to build a roll and you're starting to move up in stakes. And I just got slammed, you know, had 2 bad sessions in a row, and then, you know, just got to shift back down to 1-2. And it's different now. It is. I feel like if you can get through your first 2 downswings and not get so emotional about it and so worked up over it that you quit, you're going to be a good poker player. You know, like now that we've gotten to this point, like, you know, once you've had your 3rd or your 4th, like you just sort of understand why it's happening. And if you can figure out how to not compound mistakes with like being upset about it or being emotional, that is just gonna it's gonna turn around your downswings much faster. But I mean, my real question for you is that now, you know, having 2 or 3 losing sessions in a row, the thing I struggle with the most now, more than I did before, is like drive to go back. You know, it's that fear of like, man, am I just gonna go back and have another 2 hour, you know, 4 or 5 hour horror session happen to me? like, what are your recommendations to maintain focus and to want to come back even after you're getting beat up a couple sessions in a row?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with downswings to start dealing with them is like it really starts with bankroll management, which like people might be like, what do you mean? Well, it's like if you're playing with, like, let's say in my case, like I'm playing for a living, I have a 100 buy-in rule for online. If I lose basically like 7 buy-ins in 2 sessions, I lose 7% of my roll. Not too thrilled about it, but like not the end of the day, right? But if I have a 20 buy-in roll and I lose 7 buy-ins, I just lost 35% of my roll, which is way different.
Yep.
So I think like handling downswings is much easier when you're really like well overrolled. Now, again, the 100 buy-in thing, like not really necessarily mandatory for someone with a full-time job. Like there's just different requirements. So I think that's the biggest thing is like dealing with just having good bankroll management going in. And then from like other tips too, I think just like realizing if like on a downswing, like getting upset about it is just going to do you more harm. So like whether it's like a bad beat or whatever, like getting down about it, you're just going to lose more money in the future. Like you just have, like, I know this is way easier said than done and no one's perfect with it, but like what's happened's over. You can't change it. So it's just like, you got to look at poker as one long session and not necessarily day to day, and just like keep plugging the hands away. I think a lot of times what can be good for people is to go down in stakes. So like say you're playing 2-5 and like things aren't going well, just play a couple 1-2 sessions, and like then the dollar amount doesn't feel as big. It kind of get your confidence going again. And then as always, it's like to look at hand reviews. Again, not even the best poker player in the world makes a mistake every session, guaranteed.
Absolutely.
So it's like, just taking some of those spots that you feel like are really close and just running it by someone that you trust. Now, obviously, not everybody has friends. Yeah, that direction.
That guy.
Yeah. So like, not everyone has someone that they can go to, but like, if you do, I mean, you got to rely on your resources of like people to help you, and just like have people that are willing to tell you like you played a hand bad, or, like you don't want it's like, you don't want the friend that's just going to say, oh, you played it fine, or like you want the friend to be like, no, you really screwed up on the turn. They're like, that has to be a call. Like you can't be folding that turn. So.
And you have one of those friends, don't you? I think
Yes.
you said you have like an old high school buddy that
second best in his Twitter bio.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. But who is this mysterious friend of yours, and is he like the bad beat Bryce to your Ryan the Rock?
Yeah, so he's the better player than me. I'll just put it out there. That's very simple. So it's my friend Dom. We've actually known each other since 5th grade. My friend Dom, we played basketball since we were like 5th grade, grew up together, like really good friends all the way through, like before we even started playing poker. And then we started up playing poker in the same high school game with our friends, like $5 home game. And then like we were the only two that took it serious from thereafter. Yep. So it was, really cool, like to have someone that you've known on a personal level that played poker. Like you guys know, like poker is very niche, and like to have anyone that you kind of know that plays is like rare, but like have your best friend that also plays, and he's very, very good at poker. So it's like, he plays up to like 2K NL online. So it's like 10-20 of the 2K buy-in, which is higher stakes than I play. So, and again, kind of back to the thing, like a huge thing with Dom is he's just been so willing to help me. Like realistically, when we have conversations, I'm going to get more out of it than he is. It's just like anything, right? The better player is not going to get as much as the other person, but he's always like so willing to help, and he's really honest. And like, if I show my hand and he's like, that's terrible. Like if he thinks it's terrible, he's going to tell me it's terrible, which is like good to have, because then it's, you can make, learn from there. And, it's really cool just to kind of see him blossoming. He went full time with poker about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And he had like an incredible 2021. So it's just like, I'm really happy for him to see him doing well. And it's been interesting to kind of see us branch off. Like we're like casual poker players for a long time. And now like I've gone the content creator space, and he's gone to like, I'm just going to kill everybody at the table space. Yeah. Well, but it's been kind of cool to see both of us like take poker and like go 2 different directions with it, and like seeing some success in the directions we've gone.
Yeah, that is awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely have appreciated having Ryan. Even though you might not put in as many hours, you definitely helped me. Like if it's the nerdier side of it and you want to know the exact percentages of every single decision, run through an option, like whatever it is, like you've got me on that.
I've got Equilab on my shortcuts tab on my computer. I'm ready to go.
I love that.
Okay, at a moment's notice.
The question I'm interested in asking is, I've heard you talk about the importance of pattern recognition in poker, and this is a question that I get so often from followers, students, whatever it is. And what would you say to a student looking to understand how to play these boards? And the answer I normally say is just through volume / through watching / studying, reading books, all that good stuff. But how do you know how to recognize these patterns and when to, just how to navigate boards?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is like trying to categorize hands. Like obviously there's a gazillion different board combinations and hand combinations that can happen at one time. So you're not going to remember each of those independently. But if you can look at, so say for example, like ace king 3 with a flush draw is, you can play similar as ace king 7 with a flush draw, or ace queen 3 or ace jack 3. You know, you can play them very similar. So it's basically like try to simplify the game. I think this is where a lot of people get lost, is unless you're playing at the absolute highest stakes and you're one of the best players in the world, like I think people overcomplicate spots. It's like you should really be looking for like simplification, because it's great and all that the solver says you should raise this 65% of the time, and 75% of the time, more realistically it's in quarters, but like 75%, call 25. But like if you're not able to execute that correctly, you're actually just gonna do yourself more harm. So I think for me, a lot of it is like, for pattern recognition, I try to say, okay, what are the boards? So like for me, on my c-bet sizing on the flop, I'll use like 33% in some, 50%, 75%. So it's like, okay, what boards mix in the 75%, what boards mix in the 50%, and which ones are in the 33%. And then two, it's like when you do hand review with people, a lot of times you'll run through a spot, but then what I try to do, like say I'm talking to my friend Dom and we review a hand on the river. Now I don't need to only remember for that hand, but like what other runouts are similar, right? So like, okay, the high card changed on the river and the flush came in. Is this a spot that I get to bet with like what range? So then it's like, it's not only my learning for this exact hand and this exact board combo, but it's like I can carry it over in other spots, because I think like realistically, again, you're never going to be able to learn every spot, and you have to accept that. But if you can study a hand and apply it as much as possible, I think that's where you kind of really gain your like edge, and then like I've improved the quickest.
Yeah, because people often ask about like when do you use solvers and things, and I'm like, well, it's when I know about what I think arranges of my hand, and I think what arranges of my opponent's hand, and then I can either do some quick maths in my head and simplify things, and then after the fact I can go plug in that perceived range plus some other ones I probably didn't think of at the time into Equilab and figure out exactly what happened. But like that's just a good place to start, like solvers are only good if you understand why it's doing what it's doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
People struggle with that because they go to the solver first and they don't understand why the solver is putting out the output there is. They're like, oh, good, I'm just going to raise with Jack 9 here. But they just don't know why. And then they have no plan on the turn. So use them wisely.
Yeah, I think, and the two, I think like the easiest example I can give right now is something like I struggle with and I'm trying to improve is like, I don't overbet on turns as much as the solver is going to tell you to, even though like there's huge edge to be gained, because I don't think I'm going to play it correctly, right? So like if the solver overbet turns the best play, well, that's assuming that I'm going to play the right ranges and I'm going to play the river right. But if I think I'm a disaster after getting called on a turn overbet, I'm really just like punting EV. So like the long-term goal is yes to get good enough where I'm finding more boards I'm overbetting. But like if I'm not going to implement it correctly right now, you're just going to do yourself more harm than good, I think is like a lot of it too.
That's such a great piece of advice. That really is.
Absolutely.
It's good to hear from someone who puts in as much volume as you do. It's like, hey,
yeah,
look, if you're going to do something, you better have a plan. I think that's the thing that I've struggled with the most is like over time getting really good about like not doing something unless you have a plan. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a hard first step, but once you make that step, that's like step one to getting good at poker.
Exactly.
Well, appreciate your thoughts on this, David. And once again, thank you so much for the interview portion of this. We thought your insight was invaluable, and we will definitely plug all your content in the link at the bottom of the description. But thank you so much again for coming. I definitely have some questions after this. I'll hit you up about.
Yes.
But thank you so much for coming on.
All right, sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys. Really enjoy your guys' podcast. You're doing a good job, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Good luck on the grind.
Appreciate that, man.